Hey guys, it's me, the first show after Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Guys, this is going to be an awesome episode with two of my brand new friends. We're going to be talking about some fun stuff. We're going to be talking about some hard stuff. As you guys know, I'm coming up on 35 years being drug and alcohol free. So getting ready to celebrate. So we're going to be talking about recovery, resilience, PTSD, military. We got a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. But first, I want to thank our sponsor before we get started. As you see down below, my friend J.F. Holmes actually writes science fiction, sci-fi books, which is kind of like it's kind of like when we were in the military and we would play Halo. He's writing books like that. So, guys, if you love to read, if you love science fiction, if you love military fiction, check out the books down below. So, guys, welcome to the show. How was your guys' Christmases?
Pretty good. It's nice. It was relaxing. How about yours?
I got to spend it with my family. I got a couple video games. I can't wait to get to go play after we hang up today. So life is good.
Nice.
Mine was fantastic. By the way,
you spend time with the family?
With my PAC family. It was the first positive Christmas I've had in a while. It seems like I have had funerals before every other Christmas, so this was the first one I didn't have to go to a funeral. I actually went to a wedding, so it made this Christmas that much better.
Wow, that is really cool. So now, before we even get started, let me ask you guys a question. I'll ask you separately. Drew, what is your definition of resiliency?
Resiliency, the getting kicked down and getting back up. It's everybody's a little bit worn, but the resilience, those with resiliency, they still rise back up and and are able to overcome. And so resiliency to me is yeah, exactly that. It's the ability to be worn and to still have use. Being resilient is exactly those characteristics.
Dave, what is your definition of resiliency?
Yeah, you talk about being worn and getting back up. I've been down to the bottom of the barrel so many times. Resilience is continuing to breathe through all that adversity. Never giving up on yourself, and just keep coming back. As long as you keep coming back, you're gonna make it to your deathbed, wherever that might be. So resilience to me is a very strong word. It's right there along with patience and one of those virtuous words that I depend on to keep me going.
Okay, so let's get down to the down and dirty. So Drew, just give us a quick down and dirty about who you are and about how you came to do what you do.
Sure. Back in 2013, I had growing up, I had a close friend that was destined to join the Marine Corps, and he following in both of his parents' footsteps. Mom and dad were both Marines, and he went off and served his 8 years in the Marine Corps. And he was very proud of his service. He always was. He was proud knowing he was going in. He was proud coming out. And but he definitely went through a lot in his service. He had spent time in Iraq, Afghanistan. On two separate tours, and the impact it made on his mental health was severe. And we ended up losing him to PTSD-related suicide back in 2013. We actually just had a memorial for his 10-year since his memorial date, and just to remember him and why we got everything started. But me being unaware of at the time that 22 veterans a day were taking their own lives due to PTSD related traumas and stress and everything else. I had no idea until we lost Randy, and so I had just started diving into research and kind of going through a depression phase myself, because not understanding why, somebody so close would, and somebody that I thought was, more resilient himself at the time, but his mental health gotten so severe that you know, it was beyond what anybody understood at the time, and as far as, you know, PTSD. So when the deeper I got into the research, the more I saw that nobody was really doing anything. Like, I mean, this, we were talking 2013, 10 years ago. Nobody had programs for veterans that, you know, were coming back from these wars. Nobody was giving them a place and, you know, and time to process everything that they had literally gone through. And that's there was a huge hole. You know, I'm like, how could this you know, how could this possibly be? And then me being a civilian had no idea. You know, you hear people complain, you know, during political seasons and stuff like that about, you know, one issue or the other. But until you really dive into the research, until you really get out there and start talking to veterans, whether homeless veterans or those that are struggling, because, you know, when you go in, you start to learn that, you know, these stories are these individual stories, and then I'm talking about each person is has got so much more that is untold, that they don't, you know, that they won't often even talk about, and it leads to just more severe symptoms, severe PTSD symptoms, by not processing it. So by not having a place or a program or, you know, time, somebody had to do something. So, you know, the plan was to have a location where any, you know, veteran that needed to get, you know, start with a place to stay, you know, where they had, you know, their own sympathetic, and not only sympathetic but empathetic, you know, brotherhoods, brothers and sisters, you know, nearby, that totally could not just, you know, again, that could sympathize and say, oh man, I feel for you, you know, whatever else, but you know, can say, look, I've been there too. You know, I'm there right now. I was there last night. I got through it. You can get through it. You know, let me walk you through. I'm right here with you. And by creating that kind of environment, you know, that kind of real experience support, these guys are, you know, very motivated to grow and to work on the healing process, and to not only that, build homes and futures in addition to what they're doing. And so, you know, not just creating the community, but creating the housing. Like right now, we're building Dave's tiny home, which we're getting started on, so that Dave has a forever place. You know, he's never going to have to worry about where, you know, where he's gonna, whether he's gonna have to have a place to rest his head again. You know, and now he'll be surrounded by his you know, brothers and sisters from different branches of the military, and you know, yeah, not only that, his animals, the animals that we use for mental health therapy are unique compared to most mental health organizations that have your typical chihuahuas and poodles and stuff like that. We go with a different breed, and I think again, it kind of speaks to the warrior that's in the veterans. You know, it's more of a again, a pack animal, and you know, so we, you know, that, and that's kind of how the wolves and wolf dogs got implemented, was to be, you know, therapy animals. That all these rescues that we do, we end up having to rehab them and gain their trust, and other, you know, intense time consuming efforts that, you know, only somebody that can get really grounded, that knows how to handle tense situations, you know, all the stuff that veterans are trained for. So they've got a good head for working with animals that can be dangerous, especially when they're feral. I don't think that the breed is necessarily inherently dangerous in comparison to other dogs. Many would argue Chihuahuas are a lot more vicious than wolf dogs, but you know, again, with their ancestors still being out there in the wild and everything, there's a lot of stigmas around the breed, that they can't be, you know, trained or rehabbed or become, you know, sweet or therapy animals. When in fact, I would argue to the death that these animals are the most empathetic, and these animals reach specifically and particularly our veterans in a way that other animals just can't have that same impact. So we combined the two, made our Heroes and Hybrids program, and founded Pack 22 within Mattersville communities. Our animal care team that works with the wolves and WolfDogs, they're called Pack 22, and Dave again has been with us long enough to where he's actually a founding member of Pack 22. He's one of the original first 22 team members. So.
All right. So even before we talk to our brother Dave, want to give thanks out to Tom Dorney. I love you, brother. Thank you so much. I love you. You know, you're my boy. You're my boy, Blue. So I just wanted to say, Tom, I love you, brother. Thank you so much. So Dave, my brother, my military brother, talk to me. Give me a quick down and dirty about who Dave is. Tell us about your military career and what you got going on now.
Yeah. Hi, David Childress. I was a senior during 9/11, and so as soon as I graduated, I joined up trying to do my part, and that set me on a path that I didn't realize I was going to learn so much from. But I'm glad I survived long enough to learn all those life lessons that now I can take all of that negative and all that darkness I went through to help other people out of that same mess. We often blame ourselves and then abuse ourselves, kind of punish ourselves after things happen in our lives that we haven't that we hold ourselves accountable for. My time in Iraq, there was a loss of life that for the last 2 decades up until recently, I blamed myself for, because I was still a kid with a big heart from small town Oklahoma. I went into my military service thinking that it was going to be different, and then Iraq happened. Then I've spent the last 20 years kind of punishing myself. And then I found Mattersville on all things. I found it on TikTok. Drew was putting out some videos about rescuing animals, and I closely related myself with the WolfDogs because, they're an alpha predator of their world, and so are humans. And when we fall into captivity, mostly self-inflicted, just like wolf dogs that get mistreated and abused and locked up so they can breed or other things. That's what we kind of do to ourselves as veterans when we're punishing ourselves. And so now I'm in a job where I can rescue those animals and be in a position where I can rescue the same people that were in veterans and addicts and everybody that's been through a hard life that's in that darkness. We have the chance to help now through this program. Thinking about Randy being gone for 10 years and all that's happened since he's been gone. We're finally set up to the point where we're going to be able to have such an impact on the veterans out there that are homeless and going through a lot of blame and shame, that keeps us beat down. I'm now on a platform to help those people. And it's only because of Mattersville. It's only because of these WolfDogs. It's like Drew said, it's a therapy that not other organizations use, because it's just one that it's a personal thing, and being allowed into a WolfDogs bubble and to be respected and trusted. It means a lot after years of not respecting and not trusting myself, and not loving myself. And these dogs brought me back to being able to love them, made me love myself again.
All right. So now, what branch did you serve, and how long did you serve?
I joined the Army. I figured I can be like Chuck Norris and go be badass and jump out of planes and operate heavy construction equipment and work with a lot of C4 and TNT. And I went big. Mama said go big or go home. So I tried to go as big as possible, and I enjoyed my time. My airborne brothers it's a close community. We all have Maroon Berets and all a little tighter than the regular Army, the Pogues, the legs. Yeah. I enjoyed my time in service from 02 to 05, right there at the beginning of Iraq.
All right, so I'm just thinking, I'm Army. I never did anything cool like that. I was in the rear with the gear. But so you did 3 years. Why didn't you stay longer, and why did you get out?
Well, after my first tour in Iraq, I came back and I started experiencing breathing problems. And now, recently, they just enabled the PACT Act, which covers burn pits. And back then, I was around burn pits, and I was an engineer around exploded ordnance, breathing all that stuff in. When I got back to the States, I couldn't breathe normally anymore. And to be airborne, we ran like 5 miles every day. I was physically fit to the point where I shouldn't have been experiencing these problems. And now, years later, I'm realizing that it was from my time in service, from all the dust storms, coughing up mud, and all that stuff I was breathing in. I came home and the Army told me that I had asthma, and so they medically discharged me because I wasn't willing to reclass to another job that wasn't airborne. So I was medically discharged, and then I spent the next 2 decades kind of just going through life half-heartedly, not loving myself, and looking for love in all the wrong places. Led to 3 marriages and some time in addiction that led to prison. Yeah,
Sounds like a country western song. Country western
it's
song.
very. Yep. I even lost my trailer house and my dog at one point.
So did you have, since you've had a lot of time to think back, did you ever regret your decision of not staying in?
Not one bit. I don't regret any of the avenues that my life has taken me down, because I wouldn't have gone through all the things I went through and survived all those things to bring me to the place of knowledge that I have now. Now, if I would have stayed in, I probably would have lived a cush life there on Fort Bragg and enjoyed my time longer with my brothers. But I needed to go through some things in order to help people that have gone through some things. So no regrets, never any regrets.
Me too. I'm the same way. But now for me, my suicide attempt came Labor Day 2012 when they medically discharged me, because I spent 23 years in trying to become the ultimate soldier. And then when they tell me, well, you're no longer Sergeant Kaufman. Well, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who Richard was. I didn't have an identity. So what was that transition of the military like for you?
I got out and I immediately got married, and my new wife got pregnant, and I went about things the wrong way. I should have, I don't know, tried to love myself before I let anybody else in to love me. That would have set me on a better path. But like I say, I got out and looked for love in all the wrong places, led me to 3 marriages, failed marriages, because of issues that I wasn't willing to deal with at the beginning. Things I should have dealt with right after Iraq, knowing what I knew about the Vietnam veterans and what they came home and dealt with. I should have been more on point with it. But like I say, all those things that I went through have led me to here, to be able to help others. So
now, as you guys know, I'm no professional whatsoever. I'm only a 9th grade dropout, but I've had over, I think, almost 1,200 interviews now with doctors, psychiatrists, authors. And I found that when an adult acts out, it's usually because of trauma that happened between the ages of 3 and 13. And then you add alcohol to the mix. Then you add war to the mix, and it becomes like the perfect storm. And nobody can really tell you how to get out of the perfect storm unless they've been there. So that's what you're doing now, because you've been there, and now you're trying to help other people that have been there, right?
Well, one of the things that I like to explain, the try and explain to people how when people ask how our programs work, I actually use an example of the childhood all the way up through, to where they end up coming into Mattersville, and particularly with our veterans. So, a person is born into a family, typically, whether they have siblings and everything else doesn't really matter. There's usually some kind of parental structure of some sort, but regardless, we all have our neighborhood friends, or even if you're in an orphanage, the kids, everybody's got a path growing up. And we also then move into high school and getting older and everything else. Your world starts to expand just a little bit bigger. You understand more who your extended family is usually at that point. And then oftentimes people go off, after they turn 18 and they've been taking orders from their parents and, and whoever's in charge of them their whole lives, they've been told what to do and how to do it and when to do it and what's needed to get to be successful, to be where they need to be successful adults. Right. But and then off to, most people that join the military, again, not everybody, but most people join when they're 18, straight out of high school after they get their diploma or otherwise. And then, start taking orders from a whole new source, right? They're still, but still among a pack, among their new unit, their new whatever, wherever they're assigned to, they're going to have their pack, their family, their people, and then their orders, and then they're going to have their whole service taking orders. I mean, we're talking well into adulthood at this point that they're still taking orders literally their whole life. There's not been a period of time where they're not essentially taking orders. Even if you work in between, you've got a boss and the boss is giving you orders. Even if you've making your own life decisions as far as where you live, that doesn't matter. You're still taking constant orders. So then the day comes where you're discharged, and you go from active duty to becoming a veteran, and you're for the first time you're not taking orders, and for the first time you're not assigned a pack. You're not assigned a group to look out for. You're not responsible for anybody, and nobody's responsible for you anymore, including, essentially the military itself. So, that's where Mattersville has become so effective, is that we don't just offer the roof over the head. There's a whole community, there's a whole pack to get people back in sync with pack life and pack lifestyle, which is, when I use that hashtag all the time, hashtag pack life, because that's literally the way I think of what pack life is. It's, everybody returning to finding a pack and being a part of that community, because, pack strength all has to do with all its members, and everybody plays a part in the role in that. So.
Okay, so Dave, I want to get back to you a little bit real quick. As you see, guys, I'm writing stuff down because I have a traumatic brain injury. If I don't write it down, I'm going to forget. And a lot of stuff I want to talk about. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and stuff I don't really hear a lot about is the veterans that struggle with survivor's guilt and also moral injury. Because veterans and first responders, we do shit that the average person should never see or do. And then when we get home, we're supposed to be, quote, normal. And I think it needs to be talked about the survivor's guilt and the moral injury. I think a little bit more. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think that was one of the main reasons that Randy, who we wrote all these programs, around, was, he lived as my roommate for years. So I watched him struggle with different, all kinds of different social skills. And he would, anytime he would get to the point where his mental health was breaking down, I mean, he would, literally scream about the things that he saw or the things that he was involved in, or, and everything else. And it beat him up every day. I mean, I didn't even experience it myself, but he was a very strong individual. He's a strong-minded individual, and anything that can break him down to where even where years later, he's still traumatized by what he had seen. Like, yeah, there's definitely a lot of that was guilt, of either not being there early enough, or not having made some other decision, and it's all out of anybody's control. No decision was made knowing what the future was going to bring, but you could certainly beat yourself up about it, and that's what leads to a lot of suicides. If you look at each veteran suicide case by case, a lot of times there's survival's guilt. It's oftentimes people that were last remaining members of different units, or different situations, and it's real. It's definitely real, and it needs to be addressed more because again, people feel even guiltier for having survival guilt. So how do you crack that open in a way that says, that you should be, how do you let people know without them digging into it? And again, it's a lot of times so traumatic that there needs to be, again, somebody who knows what they're talking about and what they're looking at to be able to have those conversations and support somebody through even having that conversation. But it has to start happening more because that's, I think, one of the deadliest scenarios that's actually playing out is there's so much survival guilt in our veterans that's one of the main contributors to the volume of suicides to the 22 a day.
It's like, for me, it's kind of like, I know I've helped over
Blame.
1.1 million people, but it's the two people that I lost that were close to me that I couldn't save. Those are the ones I always think about. I never think about the ones that I've helped. It's always the ones that I couldn't help. So I understand what you're saying. Now, Dave, what were you saying?
I was just going to say, I mentioned earlier how powerful the words blame and shame are. You talk about survival skill and making it home when others didn't. That's what held me down for so long, as I blamed myself for a loss of a fellow airborne soldier. And that feeling of blame and shame held me down for so long and led to two different attempts where I didn't want to deal with it anymore. I didn't want to keep suppressing all those memories because they were just hurting. And it's been 20 years since we lost him. We just passed his anniversary. And it was only because of Mattersville that I was able to shake those emotions off. And that's because I was able to come back to that self-love through these animals. It's an amazing thing to forgive yourself when you really weren't to blame in the first place, but you put all that blame on yourself because we take responsibility as soldiers and for our brothers and sisters that are in the foxhole next to us, if you want to put it that way. So, yeah, survival guilt's one of the leading causes of suicide in veterans. If you didn't survive back there and then you came back here and lost your life, it's a whole different level of guilt because we're not in a combat zone here, and yet this is where we lose the most life. Blame and shame.
All right, so because I have three different parts of my life where I can go back and say, yeah, these were my come to Jesus moments. One was when I almost went to jail for 5 years for grand larceny, and I had to get sober in 1989. Second one is when I 9/11 totally turned my whole world around. And then when I got hurt and attempted suicide, that's when my whole life changed. So I had three different separate things that those were my come to Jesus moments. Dave, take us back to that day where you said, you know what? I'm sick and tired of being sick. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I need to start something new. Take us back to the day before you decided to change.
I had spent so long in a deep, dark depression where I was smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day, sitting in the same chair, looking at the spot that I could end my life. And I knew that if I didn't change, if something didn't drastically change in my life, that's where it was leading. Is I didn't see an end. There wasn't a light at the end of that tunnel. And here I am in my depression, just scrolling through TikTok, and I see these veterans that are working with WolfDogs, and all of a sudden there was a light at the end of the tunnel. When you hate yourself so much that you don't care if you live or die, it's a powerful thing, and it's come to Jesus moment through and through, absolutely. Because I was wanting to meet Jesus, and I didn't want this life anymore. And then when your life's given a whole new purpose, you throw yourself into it, and that's all I've done for the past 3 years is throw myself into helping others and mainly the animals. People are one thing, but I do what I do because I know that these animals are voiceless and they can't really help what's happening to them. Kind of like those kids that go to Iraq and come back different. It's the similarities are so close. Yeah.
All right, so now let's talk about the pack mentality, because when we were in the military, like I was on my tank crew, I had my guys. We knew each other. We knew everything about each other. We knew the wives, the boyfriends, the husbands, whatever. We knew everything about them, and we knew that even if we went to the bathroom, we never went alone. Even if we went to the PX to get our hair cut, we were never alone. And then once we step off base, like my friend Sergeant Nick talks about, once we step off base, the military doesn't give a shit about you. Your phone stops ringing. You don't have any camaraderie. You don't have any money. And you're a man on an island and you become the lone wolf. And unfortunately, like I talk about a lot, the lone wolf doesn't get fed, but it also doesn't get protected. So I like the idea that you guys actually help the lone wolf come back into the pack and find a family again and find a tribe. So I love what you guys are doing. So tell us, how did that actually start? Did it start with one wolf? How did the whole thing start?
It started with we had a veteran that was helping us early on with the first property, and he had a wolf dog of his own. And I had also grown up around some wolf dogs in the summer times and everything through a family acquaintance. And the Rocky Mountain Wildlife Foundation out in Guffey, Colorado, was going to close down, and they had 11 wolves that needed relocation, wolf dogs, and they needed to dissolve to a 501c3 because they were just closing down, and they wanted to make sure that the pack stayed together. So we went in with the intentions of maybe grabbing like 3, and the founder, the director there was just like, nobody else is adopting any. Like, we're trying to find homes for the ones that could get homes, but these 11, we're gonna need, we need you to take them all. And I'm like, I don't know how we're gonna do that. We just got our first property, which was, had 7 acres of unzonable, like, just destroyed land. It's a whole nother story, is squatters destroyed this property that our first property that we were building. So to build enclosures, we literally had to clear the land to where we ended up having over 300,000 pounds of construction waste and trash removed from our first property so that we could build the sanctuary. So we built enough for the 11 enclosures, and then it was kind of like, okay, we're done. And then people just started sending us wolf dog rescues all over the country, different groups, different rescue, mediators and stuff like that. And we just were always kind of like, well, we can build an enclosure real quick, and we can always squeeze in one more. And that was when there was about 7 to 10 wolf dog rescues nationwide per year, maybe. Like, and we're talking only 5 years ago, 5 years ago. We never thought it would turn to what it is today within, even within this breed. But so after we took those 11, we ended up rescuing Randog, which was named after Randy Hansen. He used to be, his nickname used to be Randog. So our first rescue outside of the Rocky Mountain Wildlife Foundation, we named Randog in his honor, and I ended up adopting him as a personal therapy animal because he's actually very, very tuned into me, and we get along really, really, really well. The calls just kind of kept coming. Like, nobody ever wanted to, none of these other wolf dog rescues they take on the animals with the intentions of keeping them forever, and the same, dogs being at their rescue for life. Where we have a model where the ones that can get into homes, we look to get them into homes because a lot of them can be pets. And so it just kind of kept going, and we started adding some different properties, or would make partnerships for different properties for extended periods of time for big rescues and stuff. And so we've rescued now hundreds of wolf dogs in a very short period of time, and currently have about 100 of them in our care at any given time right now. And I think we're pretty much the biggest in the country at this point. I don't know anybody that has 100 plus wolf dogs in their care, but we do that 3 to 5 pounds of meat per day per dog, across the board. It's lots of care from all our team members, veterans, and stuff like that. It just kind of grew and keeps growing. We have rescues that we're working on this week. We're trying to get out to California and rescue 4 more, and then we've got the last ones from the Florida rescue to bring up to the new Colorado property, and we'll probably take a break from there for a little bit if we can. But there's overbreeding was an issue during the pandemic, and now there's wolf dogs everywhere that need our help, and they're getting euthanized all over the place. And other rescues, if you want to call them that, are still just taking care of the same animals. Hardly any of them are adding space, adding locations, or anything like that, or are willing to try or whatever. So we just keep plugging along.
So Dave, what makes, because I know I've talked to a lot of people. I have a rescue dog. She rescued me. I don't think I rescued her. But I've heard a lot of people say horses are amazing for veterans. So what makes the wolf dog so special to you and to other veterans?
Because you have to earn their trust. It's not just a given. Like, you're gonna walk up to a Labrador, and it's gonna come up and lick your face and love on you just in your first meeting. Well, some of these wolf dogs, it takes a long time of every day working with them and putting in the time and going above and beyond, in some cases sitting in there for hours just so they get their scent, your scent in their memory. It's the work that goes into it. It's earning it to the level that we have to with some of these animals that have been abused or neglected or born feral. It means a lot to be able to earn that trust, because it's not something that everybody can do. Very few people can do what we do, and that's probably one of the biggest purposes that I have found in this place is I have a niche for it. And I grew up around big dogs, and so being able to do this is I'd rather do this than work with anybody else or anything else. It's definitely my niche in life right now.
So Drew, how did you take the wolf dogs and then you decided, maybe this is going to help veterans? How did that come about? And who was your first couple veterans? What are their success stories?
So there's been a lot of trial and error, but the wolf dogs weren't supposed to be a main facet program at all. We actually saw them at first as a therapy outlet for the participants that we were planning on bringing in, but also meant to be a positive coping skill, the care of them being, part of the process of keeping people busy on a day-to-day basis. Those animals depend on our team, on our care. So, making a regular regimen of weekly care and daily care and everything for the whole community, the whole team, is a part of that process. And if you don't wake up, the animals don't get, if you don't get to it, the animals don't get their care. If you don't get out there and build the new doghouse, they're going to have to sleep in that old crappy doghouse. So everybody's very motivated to do that. I'm sure it's no secret to you that, in my experience and working with veterans, is you're much much more likely to get an extreme and very dedicated effort from a veteran if it's for somebody else. And you tell them they're building their own house that day, and they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, when I get to it," you tell them that you're helping somebody else get a roof over their head, and they're like, "All right, let me get on the roof and start hammering stuff down." But it's the same way with the animals. Again, every day they've got to get up and participate in taking care of them, and everybody gets days off too. But it's they're dependent, and again, you also can't break the cycle. Oftentimes, like Dave was talking about, it takes a while to build to build their trust. And so if you don't show up for a several amount of days or weeks, you lose that progress. You literally in some ways have to start over with certain animals if you're not making repeat visits. So there's so many things on so many different levels that this does for people's mental health that that was a given. But the other thing being is we needed a facet that added the community into our work, that, because I'm very big on not pointing out people's mental health issues unless they're open to it, our veteran participants and stuff like that. And how do you advertise? How do you fundraise? How do you tell people that you exist while also respecting the boundaries and for the veterans that are participating in your program? And so we found that it's easier to show the work with the animals and let people, kind of come to their own conclusions about what that does for everybody's mental health and everybody that's in the story. They're just another team member. We're not talking about the turmoil of their lives. And honestly, a lot of the veterans don't want to talk about that with complete strangers anyways. And so it makes it easy by making the animals the focus. So that we're able to put our work out to the masses. Then we can throw in that, hey, we're building this person's house this time. Hey, we're working on that. But hey, look at this dog over here. So again, it's people don't have to feel like they're the subject of the charity, that really their work is what's contributing to housing. Because since we don't have to pay for animal care team, because our team members are doing it themselves as volunteers, everything that we raise from tours where people can come visit these animals and see the communities like firsthand. We do tours, and they all the contributions, since this is the team that's caring for the animals, go towards the veterans housing to continue growing it out. So it's like, one hand literally feeds the other. The veterans are feeding the wolves, and the wolves are putting roofs over the veterans' heads. So it kind of came together in a way that was even better than what we had hoped for, because again, it helps everybody in all those different ways, because it's a very fine balance of trying to have multiple different causes, right? Like I get upset, and Dave will tell you when things get too animal related. I'm like, we're a veteran organization. People think, oh, this is a sanctuary, an animal sanctuary. No, actually, it's a veteran organization first. And yes, there are rescue animals here as well. That's part of our thing, but that's our secondary thing. It's a means to positive mental health for our team and for our participants. But all the other beautiful rescues and all the things that are good for the animals and everything, that's literally the icing on the cake. And it's a lot of icing, but again, it does a lot for everybody involved. We don't want to ever leave a wolf dog hanging, if it needs rescue or is at risk of euthanasia. So
I love that. Now, the reason I started this podcast, because I found that if a veteran or a first responder has a mission or has somebody depending on them, they're less likely to take the weapon and pull the trigger if they have somebody else depending on them. So I love that, you're helping veterans find a mission again. So Dave, what is it like sitting around and being able to sit down and have these wolf dogs around you? How peaceful is that?
Well, I could tell you about the first day I went up to Mattersville up in the mountains. I had been in such inner turmoil for so long that it was noisy in my head. And on this particular April morning, there was a fresh layer of snow, so it kind of dampened the sound of the mountains. And I remember driving up the driveway and getting up there, and I shut my engine off, and my window was down because I wanted to see if I could hear some wolf dogs. And sure enough, they started howling, and just the power that was in those howls, I felt like I was already accepted before I was even in the program. It was a place I knew that my soul needed, because of not only the animals but the pack, that the brotherhood and the sisters and everybody that was a part of it. I knew I needed it. That purpose was reignited in myself, beyond what I had even imagined. Like, I pushed myself so far since I've been here, both mentally and physically, and I've reaped the benefits from that. Like, when I first got there, I was not able to talk and through all of the rescues that I've done. Last year, I drove 50,000 miles rescuing animals across the U.S. We even went up to Alaska to do a rescue up there, which was beautiful and amazing. But the power to be able to rescue and save another life is a purpose that I'll never forget, and that I can't wait to express to so many other veterans that are in the same position that I was.
So what do you guys got going on now? What do you guys, if a veteran is swiping up on TikTok and he sees one of your videos, what's the next step?
Well, the biggest first step for anybody, and this is whether they come to us or not, is to really, the advice I'd give any veteran first is to start to discover those positive coping skills. What is your passion? Because maybe, whether or not we're the right organization for everybody, it all has to do with the individual, right? But the first thing is positive coping skills, having and finding some positive coping skills. But if somebody wants to come and check out our program and wants to visit it and experience it, we are limited as to how much space we can have residents, but anybody can plan a visit to come up and work with the animals, come and visit with the animals. If you can only make it for a day or two, I definitely would suggest a tour or two over volunteering. We have two different properties, so it's two different settings. One of them's got about 65 wolf dogs on it. One of them's got 35 or 30 to 35. So there's and one's in the mountains, one's kind of out in the open plains of Colorado. Really it's plan a visit, plan to get involved a little bit. And again, if somebody's needing more of an intensive therapeutic visit rather than a tour, I would say, book a week or two where they're able to come out and stop by and get fully involved. They would have only about 2 days of rest per week, because we really throw people into an intense program where if they're going to be able to get to the point where they can go in with the animals, it takes about a week of training, and then they have about a week of working hands-on with some high content and full close to full wolf and all the different animals on our property, and it's an experience that absolutely nobody will ever forget. The beauty part is because we're crowdfunded, all we do social media stuff, is that it really doesn't cost anybody anything unless they need on-site housing accommodations and stuff like that. At which point, whatever the unit rental cost would be. But we don't charge for our services. We're on a donation base where, we always tell people to just, contribute what they're comfortable with and stuff like that. And, but for our volunteers, they're putting in time and they're putting in effort, which helps the organization. So, again, we don't look for any money out of the people that are coming for the therapy. That's what it's put there for. That's what we already crowdfunded it all up for. is so that the veterans and anybody that's struggling with trauma for that matter, that truly needs suicide support, or that wants to go through the program to get on a path of healing, and by that I mean the mental health healing, because we don't have on-site doctors. So again, it's but anybody that's working on mental health improvement, we're all happy to have you on board, and you'll become part of the pack pretty quick. It's and then it's about and the reason those positive coping skills are so important is if people are coming for short visits, and they need to be prepared with positive coping skills after they leave. Otherwise, they again, if they don't find a passion that they can continue to turn to, that's good, is healthy and inexpensive. For me, it's like axe throwing. I love axe throwing, so we make axe throwing targets and put them up all over the place. And but having several of those types of things ready to go, whether they come to us or whether they go elsewhere, that's the most important.
Because I was just wondering, because I go to a lot of events, I go to a lot of personal development things, and I see people that go to some place for 3 days, for a week, they're all pumped up, and then when they get home, it's kind of like they just go back into their old world again. So how do you, what kind of stuff, when as they're there for a week, how do you try to get them opening up about themselves, so when they go home, they're not the same person that when they left to fly to you guys?
Well, with that, I always tell people to set reasonable and accomplishable goals for yourself. If you're going back into a routine, but you're looking to make improvement, you don't set a routine of your minimum anymore. You got to start adding in those positive coping skills, but find some coping skills that also have an end game. Like in some cases, that me and Dave have actually talked about rebuilding a motorcycle. And the end game is going to be, that we get to tinker with the motorcycle for a while and try and figure out what's wrong with it, how to fix it, whatever else. But the end game is that we'll have a completed motorcycle, and we'll both be able to drive it out, check it out, whatever, sell it, and start on a new one to keep our positive coping skills going, or whatever ends up coming of it. But if people set goals, then you have accomplishments. If you have accomplishments, you're getting that serotonin hit, and you get that serotonin flowing, and it becomes habitual. If you make good daily accomplishments habitual, and you get your endorphins flowing in the right way, and put your brain back to proper balance for and then everything starts to improve. And again, we notice that we've got a little bit more power than we thought over our mental health. And that's why I tell people all the time, it takes work. It takes work. And it starts with the positive coping skills, and then goals that don't set yourself stupid goals. And it's the most ridiculous thing that everybody tries to fix themselves in a week, right? Like, it's like, dude, you're not going to do that. You're never going to be able to do that. It's literally, what do they say in AA? One day at a time, right? Like, you take, that's not how our program works exactly, but again, one mission at a time, one accomplishment at a time, one stable, realistic goal that, you're not going to go out and save the world in one day. You're not going to save yourself in one day, but you can start making, today's step towards that bigger goal is this. And if I accomplish that, that's a big accomplishment, because it all builds up to something bigger. And again, that's, we try and set people on a realistic path instead of thinking that they're going to be done by the end of the day and the week. All of our lives take constant, work and constant growth, maintenance as well. So,
that's why I think the new year, new me bullshit. It's all bullshit. Every day you should try and I was interviewing somebody yesterday. We were talking about how you should try to win the moment instead of trying to win the year or the month. Just try to win the moment that you're in. And then you stack, like you were talking about, and like James Clear wrote in his book Atomic Habits, you just start stacking your wins
Stacking
little
victories. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's
so
really,
Dave, what do you got working on? What's getting you excited? What's getting you out of bed in the morning?
Well, currently, I've been building my house. Oh, the pack has been building my house with me. So I am, well, a few materials, but not very far away from being in a completed house. The shell is already up, the roof is already on. Just gotta do the insides, which it's a tiny home, so there's not a lot of room. So it's been a goal that we've been moving toward as a pack for a couple years now. I think mine is the first stick build actual tiny home built for our veterans, for the veterans in our program. Me being the first one because I've been here the longest, but um, yeah, that's my motivation, and being able to, the unit that I'm in is going to get passed down to somebody else, so there's going to be more room open for other folks to come in. So the harder we push now, to get more housing, to get more room for more people. And then the animals waking up, they howl all night out here in the plains. There's no noise ordinance, so they can be as loud as they want. It's music to my ears. I'd rather be around this than the city sounds than that concrete jungle. That's the beauty part about being out here by ourselves. We can raise as many animals as we want and rescue as many. And yeah, that's a lot of motivation. That's the purpose of every day for those of us to live on site. It's better than drinking myself into a bottle or any of those other negative coping skills that I was trying to find. The same thing that I found here. I don't have to go through any of those things.
So
I just high on life out here.
what exactly is a tiny home?
that could be.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that could be several different things. There's several interpretations, but tiny homes on wheels are what people mostly think about these days. I have a tiny home that's a 20-footer that was built by Operation Tiny Home. If you've ever seen the TV show Tiny House Nation, that's their VP Zach Giffen is one of the VP of Operation Tiny Home is one of the TV show hosts for Tiny House Nation. Amazing group. They are the reason why we implemented tiny homes as the as the housing options for our veterans. But a tiny home is basically an efficiency home on wheels. It's a home that's built like a stick build house, but on a tiny home trailer to be able to accommodate the entire weight, and they can be moved, they can be placed for stationary means, or in my case, I like mine on wheels, but Dave's is going to be stationary, but also built in a fashion that if we ever needed to move the house, we'd literally be able to pick it up and put it on different sections on a forklift and move it. But Dave's is actually really cool because as one of the stick builds, it's on pylons, and we were able to add on. You could either build it with or without the extra bedroom. We opted. He was fortunate to have a donor that provided the materials for both the tiny home and the added bedroom. He's got a loft over his living room kitchen area, so he's got this. That whole extra space for storage and stuff like that. So they can basically be built out however, but the coolest thing I think about tiny homes is the use of space. Is builders in the tiny home realm, they can, if you've got that extra 2 inches of space above your cabinets, like they're like, nope, we're going to lift the cabinets up and we're going to put a cutting board in, or they're going to do something with that extra 2 inches of space. So it's all about really just being creative, not being wasteful, and then not having the curse of consumerism of having to fill a bunch of void space that people have just to have big fancy houses. Our veterans are very nomadic and very minimalistic in the sense of belongings, and that being the majority. Of course, there's some materialistic people out there everywhere, but most that we've run into, or the people that are starting their lives over, or just starting to recover, they're also often very minimalistic in so many ways. They're not greedy or needy, and so the tiny home living is the perfect use of space, and also has the flexibility to move or ebb and flow with their own whims and desires.
How big are these houses?
I have one that's a 20-footer that's got actually my wolf kennels built in it. It's 20 foot by 8.5. It's got a loft bed with dog kennels built underneath, with special exit doors for my wolves to go out of their kennels, and then shelving and everything's built in underneath, and and everything else. Dave, what does your square footage come out to yours?
168 square feet.
Yep.
So my garage is bigger than that. That's what you're saying.
That's correct.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
but
it
the
probably
minimalistic life makes it easier.
And I've been homeless, so I'm sure that 168-foot home feels like a dream home, especially if you've been out on the street, and if you've been homeless.
Absolutely,
it feels like a palace.
Mm-hmm.
So last question
I got more room than I know what to do with.
Is how do we find you guys? How do we support the mission?
Well, we've got several different social medias. We're Mattersville on Facebook, Pack 22 Alpha on TikTok, Pack 22 Alpha or Mattersville on Instagram, and there's always our website, which is the good old favorite if you just want to come straight to us, and that's mattersvillevets.org. And if you want to follow Dave's going to be going back on the road. He's going to be riding a bike across the country, from East Coast to West Coast, to finish a ride that we pulled him away from to go on the Alaska rescue. But he was already in the process of a personal mission to make it across country on bike. So you can follow Dave at what's your page again, Dave?
Pack 22 Disciple on TikTok, or David Childress. I think it's Dave Childress on Facebook. I need to have an actual website though before I go.
Yeah, next time, yeah, we definitely got to do that. That way, we just have a place to post your updates. But he made it from Florida. He rode from Fort Myers, Florida, to Tennessee on his last trip. Over 1,000 miles on the bike, and it was really impressive. But this time, he's going to go full cross country. So. But yeah, mattersvillevets.org otherwise. And if you like good videos, then Pack 22 Alpha on TikTok.
Definitely. And like I said, Dave, Tom Dorney, thank you so much for the introductions. I love it. I love you, brother. I can't wait to be able to hopefully get out there and support you guys. Maybe do some live stuff out there.
I think a live show is in order. I think he ought to just come out, and we'll just have to set aside the guest room in the Mountain House for you for a weekend, and we'll get you to meet. I would love for you to meet all the veterans. I mean, honestly, Dave's got an amazing comeback story himself, but so does every single one of the veteran participants on our property. If you showed up and I'm not going to come on here and tell everybody's story for them. That's part of their process. But I have a feeling if you come up and you started getting to know them and dug in a little bit, that it would not only be some eye-opening stuff for other people, but you might even get the wheels turning for some of the veterans that may be ready to start telling their story, because processing that is important.
Yep, again, I got a couple friends out there. My friend Ryan Hemhauser owns Disgruntled Veterans, so maybe we can all get together and do something and try to support the mission.
Absolutely.
I love you, Dave, brother. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you. And I'm going to find you on Facebook today. I'm going to friend request you and message you, so you know it's from me. I don't have any VAs or anything like that. I'm it. So, guys, if anybody gets in touch with you, it's always me. There's nobody else.
Awesome. Oh yeah. Well, we really appreciate you having us on the show too. Like, I mean, being able to talk to your followers and your supporters and constituents. Again, just again, know that we're out here for you guys as well. If anybody's in need of support, we're just have them reach out. And again, we don't have houses for everybody yet, but we definitely are happy to take people in on a daily basis or short-term basis to give them a hand up if we can.
All right, guys. So make sure you check out their websites, check out their TikToks, check out their Instagrams. They're fire. I love them, guys. Thank you so much. And guys, I just wanted to put out there. If you've seen, I've been drinking the whole time. I came out with my own coffee. It's called Vertical Momentum Coffee. Twice the energy, twice the caffeine, no crash. Best part is 100% of the proceeds go to help veterans struggling with PTSD and homelessness. So if you guys love coffee, write coffee down below, and I'll get that information to you. Drew, Dave, brother, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you guys, and hopefully we can jam together in the future.
Sounds good, brother. Take care.
Love you guys. And guys, remember, vertical momentum, the only way to go is up. I love you guys. Make sure you take care of each other. All right, guys, have a great week. Take care of yourself, and I love you guys.
Yeah, take care, brother. Thank you again.